Good morning, second graders. This is our last full week of school. So we have, I think, 2 more math lessons and then we will finish off with our lesson 15 math test. So today's lesson is going to be 15-7, equal shares, different shapes. So you need to find page 895 in your math book. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be making equal shares that do not have the same shape. Okay? So we have a pizza here, and it says to divide this pizza into 4 equal shares. Compare your answer with a partner. Do you both have 4 equal shares? Did you both get the same answer? So it's kind of hard to see on my video, but when you guys are looking at your paper, you'll notice that this pizza, there's kind of some dotted red lines already for you. So we want to have 4 equal shares, and I know in our last lesson we divided rectangles by rows and columns. So one way you could divide this pizza into 4 equal shares is we could draw lines to make 4 equal sized rows. Okay? And if I did that, one row would have 4 pieces. Okay? So each of my 4 shares has 4 small squares inside of it. Okay, that's how I know they're equal, because they have the same size or the equal amount of small squares. Okay, we could also, I'm going to try to use a different color here and see if this will work. We could also split it using columns. So you can see my columns still have 4 pieces. Okay, but today we're going to make equal shares that don't necessarily have the same shape. So I know that each share needs to have 4 of those smaller squares inside of it. So I could do these 4. Okay, I don't know how well you guys can see that, but I'll number them, maybe that will help. Okay, then I could do these 4. And then if I wanted, I could do these 4, and that leaves me with 4 down here. So the shapes that I made were almost like L's, but I know that my shares are the same because they each have 4 smaller squares inside of them. Okay, so as long as each of your share contains 4 of the equal sized smaller squares, then you did it correctly. So you don't have to draw all 3 of them that I just showed you. You pick one way, okay? So as we turn the page here, up at the top, he's telling you that how can this square be divided into 3 equal shares? He says you can use the smaller squares to help. So he showed 2 different ways to show equal shares, okay? He did rows over here and columns over here. Then on this side it says these show equal shares that are not the same shape. But we know that they're equal because if we counted the smaller squares inside, this piece has 3 smaller squares. This piece has 3. And this bottom piece also has 3. So each share is 3 squares. So we know that they are equal. Okay? So he says their equal shares can be different shapes. Okay, so when I do this lesson, sometimes it's helpful to have out some crowns or some different colors to help you draw your 2 shares. Okay, so on number 1 here on the guided practice, it wants us to divide the same rectangle into 2 equal shares. So I'm going to pick 2 colors here. I'm going to use a pink and a blue. And on the first one, I'm going to do it by rows. So if you guys have crowns or something, you guys could use those to shade in your 2 different shares. Okay. So I know they're equal because both of my shares have 3 smaller squares. So then when I go over here, I know that I need to color in 3 pink and 3 blue. And it has to be different than this way. So maybe I want to do these 3 pink and these 3 blue. Okay, so then if we're looking at number 2, our question, how many squares are in each equal share? So a share would be one of the colors. So if we look at pink, there were 3 squares inside of there. Okay, so then if we're describing our shares like we did on our last lesson, each share is a half, because remember there's 2 parts, that is a half of the whole, and each whole has 2 halves. Okay, so we'll have to go back to those fraction words from our lesson last week. All right, so if we turn the page on number 4, you're doing the same thing, except they want you to divide the rectangle into 4 equal shares. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do maybe on this first one is figure out how many pieces are going to be in each shape, because this says the same shape. This one has to be different shapes. So we're going to be using rows and columns. So I would start by drawing your row across, and that gives me 6, and I know half of 6 is 3, so I'm going to draw my line for my column 3 over. So now if you had 4 different colors and you want to shade in each section, you could, okay? Grab it. 2 more colors here. And let's see, I need 1 more color. So I know that each share, when I go over here to my different shapes, needs to have 3 pieces. So any 3 that are touching. So I could do those 3. I'm gonna grab my pink. I could do these 3. Do these 3. And let's see, and green. This piece, okay? So if I'll take this blue here. So now you just have to draw your line around the 3 colors. So there's one of my shares. There's a second share. And I need one around my blue and my green. So these pieces are all different shapes, okay? So now you need to go back and count how many squares are in each equal share, and then describe the shape, okay? Remember, if it has 4 equal pieces, we use the word fourths, okay? When you guys get down to number 7, it's asking you to show 3 different shares. Number 8 says, how can equal shares in a rectangle have different shapes? Okay, so they can be different shapes as long as each shape has the same number of squares. Okay, that's how we know that they're equal today. Each shape has the same number of squares. Okay, so that's how we know they're equal today, because we're going to count the smaller squares inside. All right, on the next page, we're on number 9. Alan wants to share this pan of cornbread with his 3 friends. Each friend gets an equal share, so you need to split it into 3 equal pieces. Okay, number 10. Greg says that equal shares can be different in shape and size. Pay close attention. He says shape and size. We've already proved that we can have different shapes today, but even though our shapes are different, the size or the number of squares have to be the same. Okay, so no, we do not. Greg is not correct, because equal shares, they can have different shapes, but they have to be equal in size, okay? All right, number 11, you guys can read that one and work on that one by yourself. Number 12, you guys can also work on that one. Make sure you read the question carefully, okay? She wants to know out of all of these rectangles, which one could be Meg's rectangle. She divided it into 3 equal shares that are not the same shape. So which one shows 3 equal shares that are not the same shape? Okay, so that was 1 through 12. And I'm going to have you guys go ahead and do the homework and practice page today, since we did quite a few of the first page together, okay? So on your assignment today, you guys are going to work on numbers 1 through 12, and then on the homework page, you guys are going to do numbers 1 through 4, okay? So lesson 15-7 today, 1 through 12, and the homework page numbers 1 through 4.